Now, we've definitely got a labour shortage, particularly since COVID. How does that affect property? Stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Berger, Mark Novak, episode 557, a labour shortage and how does that affect property? One of the probably a big issue that's affecting a lot of people, even consumers who may not even think it's affecting them, is labour at the moment. But because there's so many other issues going on, lockdowns, the virus, and JobKeeper, a lot of this isn't being spoken about. But when you speak to a business owner, one of the biggest complaints they have at the moment, which isn't the lockdown or stuff like that, it's labour. Finding people to do the work. We've seen, because due to coronavirus, they're basically, Australia have a big population who are on temporary work visas, and that's gone. I believe at the beginning of the virus, our government cancelled, I think, any tourist visas, and some working visas, and anything temporary. A lot of that population, the government said, we want you to go back home, be under your healthcare, be where you come from, which has left a big hole in the labour market for a lot of businesses. Mark, tell us who we're hearing from this affects the most. What industries and how?
Oh, look, I'm not an expert on that, but I just think that you know what else has changed? The way that we bring up our kids. So we used to kick our kids out the door at 12 years and 9 months, or at 13 years of age, and say, "Go get a job, learn the ropes." And now it tends to be the trend of education. So before, as a parent, and I've got a 15-year-old and a 23-year-old, but before, as a parent, you used to blend work and education, and now it's like, now let's get the education piece right first. So that's taken a lot of labour out of the market if parents are thinking like that as well.
Well, that's another thing as well. School kids. Okay, so we've got the tourist immigration, and then students not working as well. So, but
because they're going, you need to get that score for your HSC, so best you don't take the pizza delivery job, or you don't work at all. You're working too much, whatever.
So, Mark, how's it affecting, and what industries is it affecting more? The immigration temporary visas not working.
Look, every time we're talking to, because being commercial agents and residential agents, we're talking to a lot of businesses in our local area, and it is the one common theme that sort of that low skilled labour workforce is really, really skint at the moment. So it's these operators of businesses just have to pay so much in terms of labour rates to attract people, and they just can't find them. I know my local barista has just said, look, I've just given up, so I've just got rid of that part of my business entirely, and now we're just doing sort of purely delivery because it's easier to manage staff because you don't have to have as many. But it's a tough gig, and we're paying a lot, Burge. We're paying a hell of a lot for these guys per hour. Or businesses are just choosing not to compete in that market where they need to have a lot of staff and a lot of labour.
So where we're seeing it is hospitality, where it would have been the kitchen hand staff, the waitresses, and also construction when it comes to, it could be the greenskeeper, it could be, I know I was speaking to a builder the other day, and especially when it would be like rubbish removal, like odd jobs on a construction site where previously before COVID, if he had a big job and they needed to do it that day, he could call whoever he needed to call and get 20, 30 people on site the next day. They would work that day. They would get paid cash or however they got paid. But it'll just be a one-off job. That's it, and then they're gone. And he goes, at the moment, that's not there. A lot of the staff, they're wanting basically full-time roles. They're wanting super. They're not looking for that uncertainty or that flexibility where someone on holiday is happy to have, a student is happy to have, because they don't want to work full-time. So we are seeing a bigger, one, it's harder to find that labour. And two, when you do have that labour, what you're saying, Mark, it's not just like, I'll pay you $30 an hour cash to do this job and out. They're like, I want to get X amount per week. I want super, I want annual. So a lot of employers, as you said, they either stop doing it or they've got to employ someone full time. And then you see that extra cost going onto the service. Like, I think a lot of landlords would be feeling it, where it takes a month to get a builder out there to do the job, and it's a lot more expensive as well. Not just the raw materials we're seeing at the moment, but also the labour component. So, and then that doesn't even touch on the students as well.
It's interesting, and you know what the end product is, ladies and gentlemen? You're paying more for everything now. You are paying more for every single aspect of your life, and even to, if construction industries is struggling with getting labour, they just got to pay a lot more, which means then that the pricing of building goes up and the pricing of property goes up. So. Rents also, you know what I'm surprised with? I'm surprised Burge rents have held up, residential rents have held up so well, considering we lost people to overseas, immigrants going back due to COVID. So rents have actually held up pretty well considering this.
Well, I think, fortunately, where we live, the people who we lost who would come on holiday or they're immigrating to Northern Beaches, we actually gained from people moving from Inner West to Northern Beaches, from Bondi to Northern Beaches, or the city to Northern Beaches. So I actually wouldn't mind having a look. I reckon there are some areas that lost it. They lost the immigrants and the tourists, and that no one moved into their suburbs. So we've been fortunate. Rents have stayed, I think the actual weekly stayed level, days on market's short. It's been very, very strong, because where we lost the immigrants, we got the locals moving into the Northern Beaches, and we've seen that in the sale market as well, which has helped with that. Those one bedrooms, Mark, the studios, the 3 or 4 buddies, all who may be traveling together or moving into an apartment. We almost thought that would leave a big hole in that rental market, but it's been very strong here. But where it is hurting, is the commercial rents, where to get to that turnover, you need, like we've had a few businesses going, well, I'm only going to do takeaway at the moment because I don't have the staff to run the full kitchen and the waitress. So I'm just going to do takeaway, which means I can't do full rent at the moment because I'm not operating the full kitchen. So that's where you can see how people may think, well, how does that affect me? Well, it may affect you because you can't dine in at your restaurant. And it may affect you as a landlord because they're not doing 100% of their business to pay you full rent. So it's an issue.
And you know what? If you can work and you want to work. Like it helps the wheels and the cogs of the economy turn around. And particularly, I think, with people not getting their kids to go to work as much anymore when they're going through year 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 university and stuff like that, I think, it's just as much education going to work than doing a degree, because you're learning such important stuff really early on in your life. So I think getting our kids out there just to have a great little part-time job, make friends, learn how to mingle in the workforce systems and stuff like that. Like, I reckon kids working at McDonald's is great. Systems and the procedures, Domino's, the system procedures they learn is so important. Wendy Isaacs reckons we've got a problem with our music, Burge.
Yeah, I saw that.
So look, we are trying our best. Michelle Cheney, in the bush, big shortage of workers. Fruit pickers, yes. Seasonal workers, usually backpackers. No one wants to work, and there is so many options. So, look, I think one, if you want a job in the bush, you can see they're there easily. But fruit pickers is massive. People really underestimate that. They don't have machinery that can do that. They need people to do that. And these guys have all been sent back in planes.
Well, and exactly right. A part of their visa, because when I ran Domino's, we had a lot of, Brazilians doing their studies in their visa. And I think you have two options. It's fruit picking or something else. You've got to do it for 3 or 6 months. If it's a 4-year visa, you've got to do it. So they had a market, which I reckon majority of their staff was, the farms would have had to deal with whoever, the government or the private place doing the visas, that they had that labour force coming in. But that's gone, because I was reading a stat. It's about 12, where is it? Temporary migrants has doubled since 2007 to 1 million, or 4% of the population, says. So it's a huge amount. There's another one I read, temporary migrants saying current trends could see as many as 3 million people, 12 living on temporary basis. So I think it's around 1 million or 3 million people working on those temporary visas, which is a huge amount. So, yeah.
And you know what happens to the fruit of these farmers that doesn't get picked?
Yeah,
dies.
It goes off. Yeah, it goes off. They
falls on the ground, dies, and the farm has a really, really hard time. So we need labour, guys. We need labour. It does affect us in property. In conclusion, it does affect us in property with rents, particularly in commercial rents, because the cost of business is much more expensive. It affects construction when they can't find key workers on building sites. Some of these guys are paying double what they were a couple of years ago for the same job, and that means you're going to be paying more for your property in the long run as well.
Perfect. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Put that silly music on.
Cheers. Bye.